The underworld of organized crime sends shiver down one's spine whenever we think about it. From Sicily to New York, different mafia families have ruled different parts of the world and committed some of the most brutal crimes one could imagine. Here's a tale of the most dangerous mafia families that ever existed. Get ready to have your mind blown because the extent of the power of these families will simply shock you. Bonano Family. Part of a criminal phenomenon in New York, the Bonano Family is one of the 5 families linked to the organized crime in New York. The Bonano family has a long history of involvement in crimes. It was founded in the 1890s by Salvatore Maranzano, an Italian-American mobster from Sicily, Italy. The family was initially called the Maranzano crime family until the murder of its founder in 1931, who was also known as Little Caesar. After Salvatore Maranzano, the commission went under the leadership of Charles Lucky Luciano, another Italian-American gangster. The commission decided that the criminal operations in New York would be divided among 5 different families, including the Maranzano family. The family name changed to its current name when a new leader, Joseph Bonano, who was just 26 years old at the time, took charge. From 1930 to 1960, the Bonano family was one of the most powerful mafia families in the United States. From illegal gambling to loan sharking and even narcotics, there was not any legal activity that the Bonano family wasn't involved in. And to achieve its ambition, the family didn't even hesitate to commit heinous crimes such as murdering people. This is why the family's criminal interest and operations first expanded to Arizona and California, and then to Canada after Joseph Bonano became the boss. The family believed in and practiced old-world mafia traditions to maintain the power they had in the organized crime world. The main principles they followed were honor, respect, tradition, and dignity. Joseph Bonano was considered as the father of the family, making it the closest knit of all the 5 families of the American underworld. During his reign, Joseph Bonano was a powerful member of the commission because of his strong relations with Joe Profaci, another mafia boss. Their bond prevented other families in the commission from operating at the level that the Bonano family was operating at. The family operated a number of illegal gambling establishments, which included Glendale Sports Club, the Soccer Club, and La Nazionale Soccer Club. These illegal gambling operations generated a huge amount of profits for the Bonano family for decades. Their intelligence and adaptability enabled the Bonanos to maintain a strong presence in the gambling world, despite the presence of other powerful players in the same business. Another business that the Bonano family greatly benefited from was money laundering. The family used offshore accounts and shell companies to launder money earned from their criminal activities. Because of this, the Bonano family was able to gather an exorbitant amount of wealth, which helped them consolidate their position in the underworld and evade law enforcement. This caused many other bosses to turn against Joseph Bonano, but they couldn't get to him because of the power he and the Bonano family enjoyed. Being aware of the threats he faced, Joseph Bonano decided in 1963 to eliminate his rivals on the commissions before they did the same to him. The bosses whom the Bonano family leader planned on assassinating included Carlo Gambino, Stefano Magadino, Tommy Luchessi, and Frank De Simone. In this plan, he had the support of Joseph Maglicocco, the successor of Profaci, his friend and partner in crime, who had died a year earlier. But the plan to assassinate his rivals was soon revealed by the hitman hired for the job and forced Joseph Bonano to go into hiding in 1964. With the disappearance of its leader, the Bonano family went into the hall of a power struggle and violence among different factions that erupted in the family. Although Joseph Bonano reappeared on the scene a couple of years later and announced his permanent retirement from the Mafia, the family never recovered from the power struggle. The family has survived until today, but not without the pursuance of law enforcement agencies. The Bonano family was dangerous, but it doesn't come close to the Buffalo Mafia family. Buffalo Family. Also known as the Magadino crime family, the Buffalo family is an Italian-American mafia family and is based in Buffalo, New York. The Buffalo family was founded in the early 1900s by a mafia boss, Angelo Palmieri. Soon after founding the family, Palmieri stepped down from his position and became an underboss, the second in command in the Italian-American mafia crime families. Joseph Di Carlo took over as the new boss of the family in 1912, but it was Stefano Magadino, under whose leadership the family expanded in wealth and power. Magadino became the family boss in 1922, and the Buffalo crime family earned a seat on the Commission, the American Mafia's governing body. The Commission gave the area of Ontario, Canada, to the Buffalo family to control. The initial source of income of the Buffalo family was bottle gin, especially during the Prohibition era between 1920 and 1933, when the United States banned production, import, and sale of alcoholic beverages. The family also had a burglary ring, which was used to make extra cash and was controlled by a high-ranking member of the Mafia family, John Sissaco. The thieves employed by the Buffalo family stole high-priced items from different areas. They once stole rare artwork, including painting and statues, from the home of T. Edward Hanley, a wealthy physician, which soon put the family under the scrutiny of law enforcement agencies. Soon, the police were able to disintegrate the main burglary ring of the Buffalo family and charged many of its members with theft of different rare items from places like art galleries, museums, and homes of wealthy people. Other than burglary, the Buffalo family ran a betting ring too, which eventually became the reason for the downfall of Stefano Magadino, who was the longest-reigning mafia boss. After an investigation into Stefano's son, Peter Magadino's horse race betting, the FBI searched Magadino's house in 1968 and found nearly $500,000 cash linked to the family's betting ring. After the raid, Stefano couldn't keep control of his area because of his phone constrictions and his quickly failing health. The family went into a power struggle after the death of Stefano Magadino in 1974 and has had different bosses come and go ever since. The Buffalo family was extremely dangerous at its peak and didn't spare anyone who came in its way. But there was another mafia family that was even more dangerous than the Buffalo family, the Luchessi family. Luchessi family. Like the Bonano family, the Luchessi family is also one of the 5 most dangerous families in the American underworld. The family is referred to as Luchese Borgata by its members, which is a Sicilian word and means a close-knit community. The Luchessi family was founded by Tommy Gagliano, the lieutenant of Gaetano Tommy Reina. In the 1920s, the Castellamaresi War, a bloody conflict for control of New York, broke out. The most powerful mobsters of the time, Joseph Macera and Salvatore Maranzano, struggled for power in the American underworld. As the power dynamics changed, Thomas, or Tommy Gagliano, and Tommy Luchessi founded the Luchessi crime family. The Luchessi's family prime sources of income were racketeering, loan sharking, extortion, drug trafficking, and money laundering. They had immense control over trucking, construction, and clothing businesses in the city. The Luchessi had an alliance with the Gambino family and conspired to take control of the commission. For this, they planned to murder the then powerful family bosses, Albert Anastasia and Frank Costello. Anastasia was assassinated in 1957, while Costello retired as a boss, hence giving control of the commission to the Gambino and Luchessi families. The Luchessi family was considered a relative crime family until the 1980s, when Vittorio Amuso and his brutal underboss, Antonio Caso, took control of the family. The new bosses initiated one of the most violent periods in the history of the American Mafia. They were heavily involved in a number of illegal businesses, such as drug trafficking, extortion, and labor racketeering. The Amuso-Caso reign saw several murders around New York City in the 1980s, winning them a notorious reputation of being dangerous mafia bosses. There was so much violence during the reign of Amuso and Caso that they once planned to kill the whole of the family's Jersey-based faction, known as the Jersey Crew. The Jersey Crew was led by Michael Tazzetta and Anthony Aceturo. In the late 1980s, the crew leaders were asked by Amuso to give the family 50% of the profits generated by their illegal activities. The demand was rejected by both Aceturo and Tazzetta, which drew Amuso's anger and retaliation. Amuso and Caso decided to kill the entire Jersey crew by summoning them for a meeting. Soon after this incident, Amuso and Caso came under the radar of law enforcement agencies and went into hiding. However, this didn't stop them from running their affairs like they normally did, ruthlessly and violently. Anyone who was considered an informant was killed on the orders of the Luchessi family boss and underboss. The same happened with the rivals of the family. There were no talks, no investigation, but rather a simple shoot-to-kill order for people. The family kept on the violent track after the arrest of Amuso and Caso, and several of its leaders were arrested by law enforcement agencies for crimes such as murders, extortions, and racketeering. After the Luchessi family, it's now time to talk about another dangerous mafia family, the Gambino family. Gambino Family. The Gambino crime family has had a complicated past and underwent several changes in its name, with changes in the bosses at the top. Although the family had existed in some form in the first quarter of the 20th century, it became an undeniable force in the American underworld after the famous Castellamaresi War in 1930 for the control of the organized crime in the United States. The power struggle between Giuseppe Masseria and Salvatore Maranzano ended in the former being murdered by his own gang member who had joined hands with Maranzano, but Maranzano was soon killed too by Charlie Luciano, who made a commission to serve as a mediator between the mafia families. Allotment of a seat to Vincent Mangano, a gangster, on the commission marked the beginning of the crime family that would be later known as the Gambino family. This also began a journey of immense wealth and power for the Gambino family. Vincent Mangano appointed Albert Anastasia as the underboss of the family. In 1932, Anthony Anastasio, the younger brother of Albert Anastasia, became the president of the International Longshoremen's Association, a labor union of the American and Canadian East Coasts. Through kickbacks, Anthony earned millions of dollars for the family that was known as the Mangano family at the time. While Vincent Mangano was busy gathering all the wealth, two people climbed up the family ranks, Carlo Gambino and Paul Castellano. For the next 20 years, Vincent and Anastasia continued to work together amid their growing disagreements over matters related to their illegal activities and crimes. In 1951, Vincent Mangano mysteriously disappeared, and his brother was found dead. Following the events, the commission appointed Albert Anastasia as the new leader of the family and began a reign of fear throughout New York. Albert Anastasia was a vicious murderer and didn't spare anyone he thought was a threat to his wealth and power. However, the increasing number of murders eventually led to Vito Genovesa, boss of the Genovesa family, to conspire with Carlo Gambino and kill Anastasia. After Anastasia's death, Carlo Gambino took the reign, and the family started being known as the Gambino family. The Gambino family soon became the most powerful family in the American underworld. Under Carlo Gambino's leadership, the family became one of the most powerful, as well as the most dangerous in the American underworld. Gambino frequently got his rivals murdered and increased income streams through illegal gambling, fraud, extortion, truck hijacking, murder, and robbery. This saw Carlo Gambino become the most powerful mafia boss in the commission and exercised an immense amount of power until his death in 1976. He was succeeded by Paul Castellano, who ordered hundreds of murders to strengthen his hold as the Gambino's family's new boss. However, Castellano was arrested in the early 1980s and was succeeded by John Gotti. The family continued to enjoy immense power until Gotti was sentenced to life in prison in 1992. The Gambino crime had an ally called the Genovesa Family. Genovesa Family. Although it came into existence in the 1890s, the modern Genovesa family was founded in 1931 by Charles Lucky Luciano, one of the most powerful mobsters in the first half of the 20th century. Luciano was first hired by Joey Masseria in the 1920s, and he soon became Masseria's top man. When the infamous Castellamaresi War broke out between Masseria and his main rival, Salvatore Maranzano, Lucky Luciano switched sides and helped Maranzano kill Masseria. In return, he was given Masseria's gang, but soon Maranzano also felt threatened by Luciano, and before he could do anything about it, he was killed by 4 hitmen hired by Luciano. Lucky Luciano became the most powerful and influential boss of the American underworld, starting a crime family that would be later known as the Genovesa crime family. However, just 4 years after making the commission, the governing body of the American underworld, Luciano was convicted of running a prostitution ring and was sentenced for 30 to 50 years in prison. He kept running the family, which was known as the Luciano family at the time, through Vito Genovese. However, Genovese soon fled to Italy to avoid a murder charge, and the family's command fell into the hands of Frank Costello in 1937. In the mid-1950s, Vito Genovese returned to the States, and Costello was forced to retire as a family boss in 1957, with the family name changing to the Genovesa Family. The Genovesa family was heavily involved in illegal activities in the 20th century. This included drug trafficking, racketeering, truck hijacking, labor union infiltration, money laundering, bribery, assault, and murder. Several members of rival families were killed, and the union frequently used control ports and kickbacks. Although the family had long been pursued by the law enforcement agencies, with several key figures getting arrested and sentenced for illegal activities, the family has kept their presence in the underworld. The 5 families were famous for their immense power and wealth in the 20th century. While we have discussed the 4 of them, there is one important and one of the most dangerous families left, the Columbo crime family. Columbo Family. The 1920s were the years when several gangs came to the scene in the United States. Most of them were involved in bottle gin because the government had banned the manufacture and distribution of alcoholic beverages. Among these gangs was a group of mobsters formed by a man whose name was Joe Profaci in 1928. After a failed business gig in Chicago, Profaci moved to New York and started a small gang there, following his connections with different well-known mobsters of the time, including Salvatore Di Aquila. When Salvatore Di Aquila was murdered in 1928, some of his territory was given to Joe Profaci in a meeting of the underworld bosses. His brother-in-law, Joseph Magliocco, became the underboss of the family known as the Profaci family at the time. During the Castellamaresi War of 1930 and 1931, the Profaci family remained neutral between Salvatore Maranzano and Joe Masseria, but Profaci secretly supported the former. When Lucky Luciano created the commission, the Profaci family became one of its core members, and Joe Profaci was confirmed as the boss of the family. For nearly 30 years, Joe Profaci enjoyed a strong grip over the family and all the legal businesses and activities, including loan sharking, money laundering, theft, gambling, extortion, arms trafficking, racketeering, and murder. However, the power struggle started in the Profaci family when Profaci demanded each soldier of the family to pay a tribute of $25 per month. One member of the family, Frankie Shots Abatemarco, refused to pay the tribute. Seeing a clear defiance of his order, Profaci got Abatemarco killed, but the rifts within the family only increased, and dozens of people were killed to get control of the family. The Profaci family boss died of natural causes in 1962, and the underboss, Joseph Magliocco, became the new boss of the family. However, just a couple of years later, Magliocco was found guilty of conspiring with Joseph Bonano and planning the murder of the family bosses in the commission. The plot was revealed by the hitman who was hired to do the job, Joseph Columbo. Although Bonano went into hiding, Magliocco admitted to the charges by the commission and was forced to retire in exchange for his life. Joseph Columbo then became the new boss of the Profaci family, which started being known as the Columbo family. This was the time when the strong-built Mafia family started to get weakened because of the internal strife. Although Joseph Columbo tried to make peace with his rivals within the family, the non-violence era didn't last long, and the second family war started when Joe Gallo, a contender for the top position in the family, was released from prison in 1971. Joseph Columbo extended an olive branch to Gallo, but he refused, claiming he was more deserving to be the family boss than anyone else. else. Just a few months later, after Gallo's release from prison, Joseph Columbo was shot in the head by a man whose name was Jerome H. Johnson, which left him paralyzed for the rest of his life until he died in 1978. Joseph Giacovelli was chosen as the new boss of the Columbo family, but he soon fled to New York, fearing the claimants of the top position would get him murdered. After further power struggle, Alfonsense Persico was chosen as the new family, but the family was never able to regain the power it once enjoyed as the most dangerous organized crime organization in the United States. The Columbo family was involved in racketeering, theft, truck hijacking, tax evasion, and murders throughout, and was feared by the people of New York because of their ruthlessness. All the families discussed up until now were powerful, dangerous, and had exorbitant amounts of money from their illegal activities. But there's one family that puts all of them to shame: the Chicago crime family. Chicago Family. The Chicago family, or the Chicago outfit, rose to power during a period that is known for power struggle and the bloody gang wars in the underworld throughout the United States. In the early 20th century, the Chicago family was founded by a mobster called Big Jim Colosimo. Not only the family was involved in criminal activities such as kidnappings and murders, but it had strong political connections too. In the 1920s, two mobsters, Johnny Torrio and Al Capone, made the Chicago family a force to reckon with in the American underworld. When the United States prohibited the manufacture and distribution of alcoholic beverages, Torrio wanted to enter the bottle gin business as it had a lot of potential to earn huge amounts of money for the family. However, the family founder, Colosimo, rejected Torrio's idea. Sometime after this discussion, Colosimo was murdered in his own restaurant, giving Torrio's unchecked power to exercise over the gang members. While Torrio gathered heaps of money from illegal activities, a New York mobster, Alfonso Capone, became his deputy. In 1923, the Chicago family faced a challenge in the form of a new mayor, William Dever. This forced the family to expand its operations in Cicero. Through their luck, Capone was able to corrupt Joseph Ciclenha, the city manager of Cicero, ensuring a safe territory to operate from. The family was so powerful that it even helped Clenha win the Cicero municipal elections through violence on election day. This gave the Chicago family local immunity, and their operations expanded. The Chicago family didn't tolerate any opposition. Therefore, any gang that went against it was considered an enemy, and its boss was killed. The same happened with Dinny O'Banion, leader of the North Side Gang of Chicago. After a failed assassination attempt, Torrio retired from the leadership of the Chicago family and moved to New York as an advisor to the crime families there. Capone became the new family boss and started a brutal campaign of violence. The difference between the Chicago family and other crime families was that the former kept politicians in their pockets and did everything to buy the loyalties of the men in their government. For this, the political rivals were threatened, kidnapped, and even killed if they refused to back down from opposing the politician that the Chicago gang had corrupted. Throughout his leadership days, Capone ordered the murder of several members of the rival gangs. However, Capone's reign was short-lived, and he was sentenced to 11 years in prison in 1931. After Capone, the family entered other illegal businesses, such as gambling, racketeering, and loan sharking, and enjoyed a monopoly over the Chicago underworld until the late 20th century. All the families we've discussed were regarded as extremely dangerous at their peak, but they don't come anywhere close to the Guzman family and the Sinaloa cartel. Sinaloa cartel and the Guzman family. Sinaloa Cartel, or the Blood Alliance, is a drug cartel based in Culiacan, Mexico. Founded by Pedro Aviles Perez, the Sinaloa cartel started as a small crime syndicate in the 1960s, but soon became one of the most dangerous drug trafficking and organized crime groups in the world. While there have been several leaders of the Sinaloa cartel, including the infamous Felix Gallardo, it was Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and his family who made this cartel the most feared in Mexico and the rest of the world. When Felix Gallardo was arrested in 19 1989, an internal war broke out between the top leadership of the Sinaloa cartel about who would lead the largest drug trafficking organization in Mexico. There were several contestants for the post: Ramon Arellano Félix, Jesus Labra Aviles, Javier Caro Payan, and Joaquín Guzmán López. Such was the brutality of the crimes of the Sinaloa cartel that they didn't even spare their colleagues if a conflict arose between them. Guzmán considered himself the rightful leader of the cartel after Félix Gallardo, but Ramón Arellano Félix did not want that, so he killed El Chapo's most trusted man, Armando López. Not only this, the Arellano Félix brothers even got the wife of one of their rivals beheaded and sent the head to her husband in a box. El Chapo Guzmán also got the family members of Arellano Félix brothers killed. The Sinaloa cartel became even more dangerous when Guzmán strengthened his grip as the cartel leader in the 1990s. The cartel became the wealthiest drug trafficking organization in Mexico in the 1990s and continued to gain more business and territory with time. The main source of income was cocaine smuggling to the United States. Tons of drugs were smuggled to the USA by road, air, and sea, which saw El Chapo Guzmán become the 10th richest man in Mexico in 2011. Guzmán's sons also joined him and introduced the deadly fentanyl drug to the international market, including the United States. The Sinaloa cartel is known for its violence and doesn't hesitate to kill even government officials. After his arrest, when Guzmán was extradited to the USA in 2017, as many as 13 police officers were shot dead in broad daylight to show the cartel's rage at their leader's extradition. The new generation in the Guzmán's family is more violent than their father, so much so that they even took on the Mexican army in 2019 and forced the president of Mexico to order the release of one of the siblings, Ovidio Guzmán. Although El Chapo Guzmán is imprisoned for life in the United States, this hasn't stopped the Sinaloa cartel from expanding its operations and increasing violence in Mexico. Commenting on the horrors associated with the Sinaloa cartel, a Mexican police officer has said, "Before, they would interrogate and then kill you. Now they kill and ask the questions later."